should we start with Tom Hawkins, his fitness, and will he play?
Yeah, he'll play. So that was my hope, and not quite expectation, but that was my suspicion probably about a month ago, and he just had a ripping month. So we don't expect him necessarily to be as good round one as he will be as the year evolves, but he's well and truly good enough to play, and the last month has given us great confidence, so that's exciting. But we do pick the team tonight, so he'll be in it. It's obviously a lot easier when you should pick the teams 24 hours before every game. 48 hours out. No one should take too much notice of that, but he'll be picked in the team and he'll play.
That's obviously a massive boost, given the fact that probably 6 months ago it was sort of, well, we might have him, but now you do. How big just structurally for your team, obviously, that's a massive boost.
Yeah, structurally it helps, and that's not the reason. We're not rushing him in because we're overly dependent on the structural players, but it is a boost given that College Asney won't play and Jack Henry won't play. So no, they're up the other end of the ground, but every team's got depth until you lose a couple in the same spot, and then you get tested. So Hawk. We'd like to think we're in the position where we don't need any of our players to dominate for us to win, but he'll certainly contribute to the flow and effect for others, I think.
You didn't name Mitch Duncan in that group. Where's he at?
No, Mitch won't play at all. Mitch won't play for the next few games, so we're sort of thinking, and it's quite conservative. Probably when I start saying it out loud, it reminds me of, I'm trying to phrase it differently to the way we talked about Paddy Dangerfield last year, but I'm struggling. It's a bit similar in that, we could bring Mitch in, but it's a good example of, treating players individually based on their specific situation. So Hawkins is very, very different. Yeah, he hasn't had a full pre-season, didn't play the practice games, plays a different position. His injury is structurally sound. They've got no concerns there. So he'll play. Whereas Mitch Duncan, he could probably play as well, but he's different to Hawkins in that he's more your kind of 15, 16K game guy who we're going to be a bit more conservative with. So we can talk about him if you like, but he won't play for the next few weeks.
What about Jack Bowes? Is he a chance to get up? Or is he...
No, we'll hold Jack back as well, but he's different to Mitch in that he's really had a flawless pre-season right up until the point where he just had a little bit of a calf issue. So we're confident he could play this week as well. So much so that he'll definitely play next week.
So how many new faces could we see?
Tanner Bruin will play, Ollie Henry will play, and Esava Ratugolea is not a new face, but he didn't play with us towards the end of last year, and he's well and truly earned his spot, so that's exciting for us too.
I guess the league is always a copycat league, and everyone sort of chasing the best is looking at what they're doing. How much do you expect the league to maybe follow you into the success that you had last year, and maybe that changes the way how you obviously have to operate because every team evolves each year?
Yeah, I think it depends exactly what it is you're talking about.
Maybe in terms of just the ball movement, going forward, Collingwood sort of had a similar success with potentially something similar.
I don't think Collingwood would take much out of the way we've played, to be frank. And maybe it's because I know a couple of their guys, McRae and Lepich. I suspect that their focus will be on what they do. And there might be some stuff right out at the margin, but if that's true of us, it would be true of Melbourne and Richmond and Brisbane and Sydney as well. I think they'll focus more on them. I just don't really think about it that much because I don't think it does require a response from us. Like we are pretty much. We've always got respect for the opposition. It doesn't matter who it is. So we've talked about the way Collingwood play. But not really in the context of they're trying to mimic some of the things that we're doing, so therefore we need to change even more. We've got some things that we've looked to shift a little bit, but it probably reminds me a bit of 12 months ago where we know we're going to change and we've got some ideas on how that might look, but I'm pretty sure that if it's going really well in 12 weeks' time, it'll be for different reasons than the ones we're suspecting now.
Will it be as big a shift potentially as it was from last pre-season to the thing, Or
No, I don't think so. I don't think it will be as big a shift. But I also think the shift was a bit overplayed as well.
You rotated them pretty much 50-50 in the ruck over the two practice matches. Are you going to roll with one ruckman or just Stanley and say, look, it's possible to play them together? How are you sort of approaching that kind of?
No, we are confident that we can play them together. But we're also very aware that this season more than most there's an extra game, so that's one part. But I think the competition's so even, it is a bit more of a. Our guess is that it will be a grind, and even the fixture's pretty stacked. The best teams from last year tend to play each other across the first month of the season. So our policy's always tried to be, don't fall in love with yourself when things are going well, and don't get too flat if a few things go against you. So in terms of the ruck situation, even the tactical sub rule, I think will change a lot of clubs' thinking around that. So we need to have sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 different modes, and playing 2 genuine ruckmans certainly one of them.
Yeah, how do you think that sub rule change will impact this year?
It's hard to say. We've got a little bit of a guide to the previous kind of tactical sub, except that this is sort of 4+ as opposed to 3+. And my view all along was that you could have 6 on the bench if you like, but if you can only rotate 75 times, then the risk of kind of being out-rotated is almost completely mitigated. So the risk when there was only 3 was that if you make a tactical sub early and get an injury, you might be down to 2 on the bench, which is not optimal. So I think it leaves a bit of room for an earlier, more aggressive call, and if you get an injury, you still could be okay. And I think, and this is a good thing for the game too, I think it does open it up for the big guys a bit more. The game has evolved really, really quickly into a running game, and I've felt that it's important not to legislate out big guys, especially your really big ruckmen. So Collingwood are a good example. The opportunity to play sort of Cox and Cameron together is much more on the table than it would have been last year. So I think it's mainly around the big guys, but it'll be impact players as well. So how you define them is different for every team. We've got different thoughts on it. But again, the only thing I'm sure about is we'll be talking about it slightly differently in 8 weeks' time because we'll have more information.
Sorry to backtrack on, but does that mean you will play 2 ruckmen?
I thought I got away with that one. That was a logical follow-up, wasn't it? No, we won't this week. But we do, again, we kind of have 3 ruckmen in our team already. So it depends which way you slice it.
Chris, can you tell us about the response from Max Holmes across the summer? Obviously, a heartbreak story from last September. His form across the pre-season has been really strong, his practice matches. How do you see him respond?
I couldn't hold Max in higher regard. He's one for the way he handled the situation in the moment. I thought it was it's hard to help players through that. It's really sort of, I think we did what we could, but it was really a matter of, Max, handling the situation well, and he did that perfectly, I thought. And then his response to pre-season and his evolution towards the player that we think he can be has been brilliant. But I think behind all of that, the reality of elite level sport, and there are so many examples of this. I guess if you really sort of pushed me on it, I'd love Max to get, the ultimate success. But that can't cloud our thinking. We've still got to do what's right for the team. So it's not a matter of us sort of sitting back saying, "Oh, well, we owe Max one." It doesn't work that way. He had to do the work and make sure that he earned his spot in the team, and he's well and truly done that. So I think really you'll never completely forget, but I hope it's something that Max looks back on in the context of his overall career and sort of sees it as a blip because the rest of it was so successful. And the only way he's going to do that is by looking forward. So I'm going to do my bit in trying to avoid dragging him back.
I know you've sort of hinted at the fact that you want to eventually get him to that inside sort of burst midfielder. How much are we going to see that from him? And this pre-season obviously would have been a focus potentially on his body shape in the gym, as he had to put on a couple extra kicks just to his natural progression to get to that point.
My view is that he didn't need to put on extra weight to be successful in that position, and I think we were heading that way towards the end of last year anyway. So yeah, he'll play a little bit more inside than he may have in the past. But we've got a pretty good group in there, and we do try to spread the load, even amongst our sort of really experienced mids. So he's got his specific strengths that we want to maximise. But it's not to say that we're going to play him inside because we're so focused on the future. It's more because we think he's the best option in there.
You touched on Esava before. I mean, can you tell us about his evolution as a key defender across the last 12 months and particularly across the summer?
Yeah, we played Esava back about midway through last year. He came off ankle syndesmosis surgery in the first half of the year, which really held him up. And he kind of ran into a situation where we were a pretty settled team in the last couple of months of the year, and it was hard to break in. He did play one game against West Coast here late in the season as a key back and performed really well. Gave us the confidence that if a spot opened up in a final that he could do that. And across the pre-season, I guess the part that I'm kicking myself with a little bit is that when I watched him, he looks like a back to me. And I asked myself, did we make a mistake by persisting with him for too long in other positions?
Did you hear Craig McRae Matthewsism yesterday?
Oh, Sarah passed it on to me, but...
Did you laugh? He wanted you to laugh.
I laugh at everything he says. Even when he's trying to be serious, he's still funny. That's just the way he is. His players must love it.
Do you have a Lee Matthewsism for us?
No, I try to keep them for our players. And it flies in a similar position to me in that Lepper would pick up on all his Lee Matthew-isms. And Nigel Lappin's the one for me that picks me off every time. So I don't have anything for you necessarily. I mean, what did he say? If it bleeds, it could kill it.
He was laughing when he said if it bleeds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to put a slightly serious note on it, I think that comment was made about an Essendon team that might have been at the time kind of, the best team of its era, and how are you ever going to beat those guys? I don't think we're quite there.
Chris, if Jeremy Cameron's phone number flashes up on your phone tomorrow, do you not answer or ignore it and just hope that he's at the Centre?
Well, he won't ring me, that's for sure. I think you've seen a little bit over the last 6 months or so how casual he is. Like, the most important things in his life he's still pretty cruisy about. The only thing that I need to know is that we've got people sort of charged with that responsibility, and he's really comfortable with it. So, the day that his number flashes up on my phone, it'll more likely to be, do you want to play golf, than I need your help on the birth of my child.
Was there much planning around it, or do you just treat it almost like an injury that he has to go?
There's a practical side of it. If the 1 in 100 happens, the odds might be greater than that, that he can't play, then the coaches need to be ready for it. But in terms of the logistics, that's sort of up to others. Particularly our AFL coaches don't get involved in that stuff. So yeah, it's like an injury. If we got a call, and the worst call you get game day is from the club doctor. It's like, okay, this is rarely, it's going to be, hey, everything's going really well, just wanted to let you know. So it'd be like an injury, like the club doctor rings and says, hey, Jez is out, and we go, okay, sweet, no worries. Contingency swings into action.